Hey, 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 badass listeners. This is Sue Willoughby, your chief strategist here at Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. And as we kick off the new year, I want to talk about a couple of topics that are very near and dear to my heart. And today's guest is embodying one of those topics. My guest today is Susan Larkin. She is a certified senior This Naked Mind coach, a gray area drinking master coach, and sacred depths life coach dedicated to empowering women to reclaim their worthiness, gain freedom from alcohol, and transform their lives. With a deep understanding of the challenges women face in midlife, she knows firsthand the struggles of using alcohol as a coping mechanism and also understands the toll it can take on one's physical and emotional well-being. Susan's coaching philosophy is rooted in compassion and grace, recognizing that the path to freedom from alcohol dependency involves delving deep into the underlying thought patterns and emotional triggers rather than simply focusing on the act of drinking itself. That is so true. Drawing upon her own experiences and professional training, Susan provides a safe and supportive environment for her clients to explore and understand their relationship with alcohol, guiding them towards a sustainable behavior change, personal growth, and a life you can't wait to wake up to. Please welcome my guest, Susan Larkin. Hello, beautiful listeners. Welcome back to another episode of Midlife Strategies for Badass Women. So as we're kicking off the new year, there's a lot of things, you're all making your resolutions, which, okay, I got to just say, the word resolution, New Year's resolutions, I don't love that word. I love intentions. I think intentions don't set you up for failure, where I feel like resolutions set you up for failure. So if, when you're doing these things, whatever you want to call them, if you're examining your relationship with alcohol, if that's one of the topics that you want to tackle this year, then you've come to the right place. My guest today is Susan Larkin, and she is an expert in this area. And I personally have gone down my own journey examining my relationship with alcohol. So, Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So you are also a podcaster and you have a show called Sober and Lit, and I love that. Tell me a little bit about, you've got 3 different coaching certifications, and what drew you to work in this area of helping midlife women have a better understanding and change their relationship with alcohol?
My mess became, it's like, my mess became my message. I just felt so strongly that I suffered for years myself, questioning my drinking, wondering if I was drinking too much, looking around and seeing, well, everybody else is drinking maybe even more than me. But I felt internally that my drinking really wasn't right for me. It felt heavy in my spirit. Anytime I would overdrink, and over drinking is relative to who you are. My over drinking, how I would feel the next day, could be the same amount as somebody else and they feel fine the next day. But if I woke up with a hangover, I would beat the crap out of myself that day. I was just a failure. How could I have done this? I was just very, very upset, full of shame and regret. And it was just like this little black cloud over my life for so many years that once I got free, I really, really wanted to help other women who may be wondering, suffering, questioning, to just take a look, get curious, and take a look at their drinking with no shame, labels, or rules. Because I understand that many people think of alcohol as being this binary thing or disordered drinking. I like to call it disordered drinking. It's just like disordered eating, and so, many of us women have disordered eating too, but there's so much more shame around disordered drinking. And so just to be able to look at it with curiosity and kind of unravel, the reasons why you drink. Usually we're drinking to change the way we feel inside. We've given alcohol unbeknownst to us sometimes, a lot of jobs in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And just to look at those and be able to just be curious without that little shame cloud all the time, and just be able to see, and regardless of whether the end result is full abstinence or not, that is not what I'm about. I am about whatever is right for you, my client. So that, so I would rather you come and let's explore your drinking and just see where it takes us. It doesn't, just because I don't drink, I choose not to drink, doesn't mean that has to be the end result for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So really it came from my own just heart. My heart breaks for anyone who's out there just suffering and wondering if they're drinking too much and feeling stuck in what I would call this wheel of self-sabotage or a negative habit loop. And the best way to get out of something like that is just through better understanding and learning and getting curious.
Yeah. I love that. And that is, I think that, even if you are curious, we all know, right? We all feel it. I grew up with an alcoholic, and, it was hardcore. And yeah, I just never, very much shaped the way I was now. And, my mom used to buy us alcohol when we were kids, right? That kind of thing. So I came by it naturally. It was something that I was brought up with, and it just became part of my life. And, it also took me down some to some dark places. And, you get to a point where, like you said, you start getting curious and questioning. And it's like, as you get older, why am I still doing this same thing that I was doing in my 20s and 30s? And now I'm in midlife. It's not serving me anymore. And also, like for me, I just got to a point where I had done so much internal work that I said, you know what, this relationship with alcohol needs to go. Just like any relationship. If you're in a bad relationship, get out of it, right? So I made that choice to do that. I didn't go to AA. I didn't do all of the things like that. I just felt that I was ready because I had been doing a lot of the things that you're talking about, the questioning and all of the, all of the things, and saying, okay. And I did, and that's what I did. And I just stopped drinking. It didn't make me uncomfortable to be around people that were drinking. So, I mean, there's so many things that we're going to cover today.
So many things. I know.
Right.
I know. There's so many things. Well, yes. So I have a lot of clients. There's just so much. There's so much. It's almost like, we an infographic we give is like an iceberg, and there's the tip of the iceberg, which is just what we know. And then there's everything underneath the water, which is all the stuff. So I've had clients like yourself who have a parent who was an alcoholic, and in some ways, them even exploring their drinking means they're like that parent. And so that's the barrier. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no,
and
not
that's
at all.
so hard for them. Well, it's hard for them because they think,
Yes.
oh, if I explore my drinking, if I think, drinking isn't serving me and I'm going to stop, that means I'm just like my mom, and that means I'm an alcoholic. And that is not true. But that's the baggage that is under the surface that we need to pull up and look at and explore. And that's why I have the three. Well, I'm kind of an education nerd, but I have the 3 certifications because I have This Naked Mind, which is an amazing program, an amazing certification program for coaches for learning how to change your mindset and rewire your brain around the thoughts and beliefs around alcohol.
Yeah.
I also worked with Jolene Park and her Nourish method, which is all addressing the body and your physiology, and especially for midlife women. I mean, there's a lot going on in our body, and just addressing and like replenishing your neurotransmitters that are definitely affected by drinking. And then my Sacred Depths is a life coaching certification where we can go deeper with some of those things like family relationships, and those deeper thoughts. And so now I've told myself no more certifications. I think I'm qualified.
I got
it. Yeah, no, I think I got it. But I wanted that for myself because I learned from all of these programs myself. As much as the certification was for me to be able to serve clients, it also served me. So as I grow, I offer that to my clients as well. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love how you said that, if I question my drinking, then I am my parent, or I am my whatever. And I hadn't thought about it from that standpoint, but that is, yeah, if, well, my mother was a raging alcoholic. Does that make me a raging alcoholic? I don't know. But if I think about it, then maybe I am and I can't talk about it. Yeah, right. And then you spiral off into all these things. There's also such a stigma, and we talked about this a little bit before we got on, such a stigma attached with letting go of alcohol in our lives, because it's not like, if you quit smoking, people are like, good on you. You did a great job. Congratulations for not smoking. If you quit drinking, they're like, what was wrong with you?
Yeah.
Did you
That's
have
what you get. You get that
right?
look.
You get that like, oh, well, you're not
Oh.
drinking now. And then they're like, well, we don't want to hang around with you if you're not going to be drinking.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
no fun. Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. So you're gluten-free, you're, vegan. Like, to host someone who's alcohol-free is so much easier than to host a vegan. I mean, I love vegan people, but it's just a lot easier. All you do is you just have to have one alcohol-free option. And there's many of them. But yeah, it's so like, oh no, they don't drink. What are we going to do? Huh?
We'll just put them over in the corner. They can be like on display. Look, there's a person that doesn't drink at this party.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It's not that
well,
bad.
And that's what scares them. But you know what? Out of people from Eve, also, that's a big thing. What are people going to think of me? I work on this with my clients. We come up with what I call an elevator pitch, which is what you feel comfortable telling people about your choice to not drink. And honestly, I tell them, we don't wait around for people to decide what they think. We tell them what to think.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, okay. Like my elevator pitch is, well, and this is the truth, it's an element of truth, but you don't need to tell, always tell the truth, but you don't always need to be telling it. You don't need to tell everybody your gory, story. But mine is that, when I stopped drinking, my anxiety and depression just got so much better. Like I wasn't depressed. I don't really have that much anxiety. And it's like, oh, alcohol was creating all this. I was drinking to help my anxiety or what I thought, or depression. And alcohol was what was actually causing that. And so I just feel so much better. And when you say that, like, what are people going to say? We want you to feel like crap. They're like,
feel like us.
yeah. Just you don't want just one. Well, why? Just for the holidays? Well, why would I want to feel like crap on the holidays? It's like it just doesn't make me feel good. Just like dairy sometimes doesn't make people feel good, or gluten doesn't make people feel good.
Yeah,
alcohol doesn't make me feel good, and I just choose not to drink it.
Yeah, and clarity. You have clarity now. Like you said, you're not burdened with the depression and the, anxiety and all of that stuff. You're like, you wake up in the morning, you don't feel like crap.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I say the day I wake up the next morning and wish I drank the night before will be the day that I start drinking again.
Yeah.
Because never. You never wake up the next morning and went, darn, I wish I drank last night.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah.
I feel so good. I wish I had a big old hangover. Right?
And you don't know. Like, you know what? We think that the way we feel when we have alcohol in our life on a regular basis, and whatever that is, it could be a regular basis of like, oh, wine Wednesday, Friday night, Saturday night. That was kind of my routine until it like morphed into a little bit more towards the end. And then I'd pull it back and then it would go back. But it was always like, but I had to have my wine Wednesday and definitely Friday and definitely Saturday. You know what I mean?
And then it becomes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Sometimes. Yes.
Just one glass.
But how you feel in your body. You think, oh, this is just normal. Oh, this must be old age. This must just be how I feel. And then when you get alcohol out of your system, you realize how much better you feel. And it was so apparent to me because I was about maybe 9 or 10 months alcohol free. And I got the first COVID shot. And that made me feel like crap.
Really?
And I went, I just felt... And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like really gross and hungover. And I'm like, I used to do this to myself every week. Like I would wake up Saturday mornings and feel that way and still like drag my sorry ass to the gym and work out because it was like, if I can still work out, that means I don't have a problem,
Yeah,
and
I hear you.
It was like, I never want to go back to ever feeling like that ever again. Oh my gosh. So
I hear
that's
you.
why I think everybody should just, and this may be controversial, but everyone should take a break. Whether you think you have a problem with alcohol or not, take a break and just see how you feel. You owe it to yourself just to see, do I feel better, without alcohol in my system on a regular basis? And whether that means, you give it up altogether like you and I have, or you just are like, well, maybe every now and again, but I just really don't want it to be in my system on a regular basis, you
Yeah.
know?
I hear you. And it could also be a slippery slope. You're like, well, I feel pretty good. I've been sober I haven't had any alcohol. I just did 4 years. I just celebrated 4 years, and it feels
Wow.
great. Thank you. And I think, why would I want to drink? I don't have any. It's not like I'm like have to close my eyes when I walk through the alcohol aisle in the grocery store or anything. Uh, it doesn't bother me. The one thing is like that it doesn't even bother me to be around people that are drinking, but it's kind of like it's less fun to be at an event that is centered around alcohol because you're like, what's the
Well, it's
point?
boring.
Isn't that terrible?
It's
like,
actually
what's the
boring.
point?
Yeah, it's kind of once the conversation tips over into sloppiness and slurry, then you're like, well, it's time to hit the
Gotta
road.
go.
Yeah, because it's just boring,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's all. That's all. No offense or anything, but yeah, it's just not. There's no connection. I like to. When I first realized this was a huge realization too. Is when you drink. And I saw this with my husband because he still sometimes drinks, but early on, he drinks significantly less now. But early on in my journey, he was still drinking his normal amount. We go out to dinner and I see him have a couple drinks and it's like the shades come down, just like level lower blinds, like almost like the sheer ones because I could still see his face or his eyes, but there's less of him there. We're really not connecting. And so if you have the belief that alcohol helps me connect with others, can you imagine he has the shades down, I have my shades down. Like, where are we connecting? We're both connecting through this film of alcohol. It's not
Fog.
true connection. Yeah. It was just I was like, whoa, I could just see it happening where I'm like, hello, are you here with me?
Can
Not
we
really.
open the blinds and see?
Yeah. And so this is the process, though. Like you said, it doesn't bother you to be around other people drinking, doesn't bother me. And I never thought I'd be able to sit across, at a cafe with my best friend and she's drinking my favorite Sauvignon Blanc and I don't want any. I just don't want it. But that's how you change. And this is this naked mind process is to really change the rewiring. Alcohol becomes something you no longer desire. And when you no longer desire it, there's no temptation. And then you're not in that cognitive dissonance battle of hanging on tooth or nail, like, oh, okay, you're drinking and I'm not drinking, and you have to feel like you have to armor up or anything. You're just totally present in there. I go to the liquor store. My family still drinks. I pour my mom a glass of wine if she wants one. I am it's just that this is my journey. I don't put it on anyone else, although they, hear all of the reasons why. It still is a health issue. From a health perspective, I do sometimes jump on my soapbox, but it's not a moral thing. Like, I'm not bringing it up from a morality point of view. Like, my choice to not drink, I'm not going to, Bible thump you with that, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that, once again, I do think that stigma that's attached to not drinking that I talked about before. And we also, before we got on, I talked about the word sober and sobriety. It sounds to me, and it feels dark, like a dark thing. And I think that scares people. Like you said, if I start questioning my drinking, then I am an alcoholic. And, nothing against AA. I think it works for some people, but you had said like something about, let's address what's beneath the surface, right? With the tip of the iceberg and not just the drinking itself, because the drinking itself is like the result of all the other crap that's underneath.
Exactly.
So I think that some things address the drinking. Like if you go to an AA meeting, the first thing you do is reinforce the fact that you're an alcoholic. And I don't know. I mean, to me, the more emphasis you put on something, that's what you focus on.
Yes.
So, like I said, controversial maybe, but that's just my own personal feeling. I want to say I'm alcohol free.
Yes, that's what we say. And to your point, we did change the name of our podcast through being in a podcast optimization
Which
course,
is how
to
we
be
met.
honest with you, because sober is just, it's the most succinct word that people get. So alcohol-free, that was the name of our podcast before, was Feel Lit Alcohol-Free, because that's really the word I use. But interestingly enough, the more that I'm in these spaces, more I'm on Instagram, in what I would call the Soberverse, so many more younger people are, I would say, reclaiming the word sobriety and really putting a more positive spin on it. Like living sober is like being a badass. To your point of your podcast name, it is being a badass, and to kind of to work on wiping away that negative stigma against that, even that word sober, that we can embrace that and say, yeah, I live a sober lifestyle. And that's a badass move to make, you know. And there's a lot of women, particularly in the sober spaces on Instagram and social media, that are really flying that flag, you know, high. Like, yeah, let's be sober and lit. Let's be sober and live our best lives. And like Ruby and I talked about it on the podcast when we did change the name, is like reclaiming that word from the darkness, so to speak.
Okay.
And
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So,
but yes, but I do think it has had a dark connotation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you say I'm a sober person, I immediately
like,
think that you need to go to a meeting immediately. You know, it's like, what meetings do you go to? And that's okay. Like if meetings work for people, but AA, and I did go to AA very early on. I wish that, like, I interview people on our podcast all the time that are writing these books and coming from the gray area drinking perspective. And I was for certain a gray area drinker in the beginning, when I was early on questioning my drinking before it was even as problematic as it got later. Honestly, like really at the beginning going, I really probably drink too much. I'm relying on wine a little bit too much. And I went to my pastor at the time and they said, oh, well, if you think you drink too much, you need to go to AA. And I was just like, oh, and I was like, okay. And I remember going to my first meeting, and I picked this meeting because it was called Living Sober. And I thought, well, I got to figure out how to live like this then, I guess, you know? And so I went to this meeting. I cried, oh my gosh, through the whole meeting, cried all the way home. I was determined to do something about it. So I did stick with it for about 8 months. But the only thing I learned in AA was don't drink. That's it. I didn't learn any tools to not drink. I just learned don't drink, you know.
You didn't learn
go to
why
meetings.
you were drinking or all this other stuff.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And
No,
so,
I get it.
yeah. And then I left and they just like I talked to my sponsor at the time and said, well, I think I'm going to try to moderate. And she was like, well, then you can't go to AA because AA is for people who are, you know, abstaining.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then it was like, she got out of my car and I drove away just feeling completely untethered. Now I had no support. It was sort of like, where do I belong then? I kind of think I had a little bit of drinking problem. I drank a little too much, but I don't belong over here. So now I was like, I'm on my own.
Yeah.
And I, you know, went for many years, again, you know, doing okay, quote unquote, moderating, but over drinking and then beating myself up about it and just wondering what's wrong with me, and constantly in this, what's wrong with me, and worrying that, oh dear, I'm in that camp. You know, and not understanding that alcohol use disorder is a spectrum, mild, moderate, severe. I was on the mild end, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it's great to address it at that end. It really is. And I work with women who are able to really stop drinking for what I would say all the wrong reasons, and occasionally have, you know, become an every now and again drinker. And an every now and again drinker is 2 times a month, maybe. You know what I mean? Like is not every now and again, is not every Wednesday or every Friday or every Saturday. Okay.
Right.
That is, and the definition of gray area drinking is anything that's not an every now and again drinker to needing, you know, medical intervention. That's a pretty big window.
It is. Yeah.
Yes. So
because I did want to talk about your term gray area drinking.
Yeah,
so that, thank you for helping define that, because I do think a lot of people fall into that, you know, area of, you know, I think I'm here and doing something, you know, I feel not great about things. And, you know, and it's usually high functioning people. It's not like You can't function. You know, it's not like you can't get up and go to work in the morning. Like you said, even,
No.
you know, go to the gym. You are able, and you're usually a pretty high functioning person, right? High
Yeah,
functioning drinker.
yeah. Yeah, and not even a high functioning drinker, a successful
Yeah.
woman, businesswoman. You know, almost all my clients are like C-suite or retired C-suite executives. You know,
Hmm.
alcohol isn't impairing their ability to do their job or
Right.
be a great parent or anything. Now, will it up level, not drinking up level all of those areas? Absolutely. And I see
Hmm.
it happen with so many people. Successful women become even more successful, or they completely change their life and go in a completely different direction that is more their passion. And it's amazing just to see the doors that open when you take away this thing that's probably like a little black cloud over your life. You know, this thing that's really dampening your potential, dampening, you know, tamping down your brilliance, because that's what alcohol does.
Hmm.
Again, if it's like this shade that comes
I was just
down,
going to
it's like,
say that the
yeah,
gauze, the fog settles down
it's
and
like a
you're,
fog,
yeah.
around your brilliance, around your listening to your intuition. You just make so much better choices. It's truly an up level in life, although it's hard for people to believe that, honestly. Because I get it. And I get it. That's where working with somebody, like I had therapists and stuff, and I would talk to them a little bit about my drinking. And sometimes they'd be like, oh, you're fine. Or they would be like, well, then go to like a program or something, da da
Yeah.
da. But they didn't get it. Working with a coach that's been through the process, I get it. When you tell
Hmm.
me, oh no, I can't imagine my life without alcohol, I get it. I
Yeah.
was the same way. And I know clients, but I also have clients who said the same thing. And I know that I can get you to the other side. And then you can make an informed decision about how much alcohol, if any, you want in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that,
I think that a lot of it comes from when you say, I can't imagine my life without alcohol. When I hear that statement, it comes to mind that what are my friends going to think of me? Am I going to have friends if I'm not drinking? What am I going to do? Am I going to, all the activities that I do, let's go for drinks. Everybody's, hey, let's meet for a drink. Let's meet for whatever. Not like, let's go have coffee or let's go.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
alcohol, when you stop and think about it, a lot of times our lives center around it, our activities, where we go. Oh, if we're going to go someplace, what do they have to drink there? What does the bar menu look like? All this stuff that kind of comes up. And so like, I can't imagine my life without alcohol. What would I be? Who would what are my friends going to think? So all that kind of stuff. So how do we break that cycle without shame and labels and rules?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's so interesting you say, like going out for drinks. When I was working, the gals at my office went out for happy hour, but they all invited each other, but they didn't invite me at that time
Mm,
when I'd stopped drinking. And I was so hurt. And I remember talking to one of them and they're like, well, we're going out for drinks. And I go, well, I drink. I just don't drink alcohol. Like,
yeah.
what's
Yeah.
the purpose of going out? Is it just to go sit and drink, or is it for us to talk
Yeah.
and like get to know each other and laugh and talk about work and our private lives and, our personal lives and be friends? What's the purpose? So
Yeah.
again, like we can still go out for drinks. I remember
Yes.
inviting someone out for drinks and she's like, well, you don't drink. I go, well, I know, but we can still go out and have drinks. I don't
Right?
have ethanol in my drink, and you don't have to either if you don't want to,
Yeah.
so it doesn't have to, we can still do all this same things we used to do. We just don't have alcohol in our glass. That being said, sometimes we do shift things around. Sometimes we do have what I call a friend shift. Sometimes you
Mhm.
find that some of your friends were really just drinking buddies and you don't really have that much in common with them. And then that's okay. That's okay. But honestly, most of the women I work with, it was really more about drinking at home,
Mhm.
drinking for stress relief, drinking as a shitty consolation prize for the end of the day of a life that maybe a job they don't love and a life that they've let get small and they have desires, but they're just too tired to like pursue them. And then they just sit down and drink their wine and watch Netflix, and that's good enough. Like they have a good career. They have a lovely family, but there's just something missing. You know what I mean? And the alcohol that they're using in order to sort of soften or numb that feeling is actually the thing that's keeping them from being able to go and after those desires, or even to have intuition or know what the desires are, So yes, there is the country club factor, I would say. What do I do when I go to the country club? What do I do with my tennis gals when it's the tennis party, this and that? And you know what? Most of the time, nobody cares if you're not drinking. You show up with your Heineken 0.0. I had a client once who said, I went to my tennis party and I had my Heineken 0 and I was walking around with it and no one noticed. And I was like, I wanted to be like, do people see? I have my Heineken 0.0. She goes, but nobody noticed and nobody cared. So a lot of times, most of the women that I work with, their friends really don't care.
Yeah.
If you drink or not, and most people really don't care once they start drinking. Even if you feel self-conscious, they don't care. Once they get a drink in their hand, they're happy and doing their thing. All you need to do is get a drink in your hand, and it doesn't have to be with alcohol in it. And then you're at the party, just like everybody else.
Exactly. And I think that's a huge thing that you just touched on, because there's a couple of things. Like you said, the younger generation is coming up and saying, we don't want to drink, right? We want to have fun, active lives, and it doesn't have to include alcohol. So they're taking back the sobriety lifestyle and the sober lifestyle. And also, there's a lot of companies out there that are like, we want those dollars. So we're going to come up with stuff without alcohol in it. So I used to love craft beer because it was delicious and everything, IPAs will kick your ass. So, but then there's companies like, there's so many options around that now, like Athletic Brewing. Just like you said, Heineken 0. I was never a fan of Heineken before, and I really don't want it with 0. It's like, I don't like the taste of it.
But it's everywhere. So when in a pinch, usually the bar will have Heineken 0. I don't love it either. There's so many better options. Like you said, all the craft beers, many awesome craft alcohol-free beers.
All the craft beer makers are like, hey, we got a 0 version or a 0.005 or whatever it is. It's like, but it's alcohol-free. And I love that because I got a beer in my hand that I enjoy because it actually tastes good. And nobody knows. And I don't care if they know or not. And the beauty of it is then your friends will be like, hey, can we, you go over to their house and they're like, would you like a beer? And then they have some in the refrigerator, which I love that. I think that's sweet and very supportive. And it's great.
It's a lovely way to support your friends is to have an alcohol-free option. Or I always tell my clients, bring your own, just so you know.
I do too. I got a little portable cooler.
Yes, because don't get caught unawares, and have a backup plan. My backup plan, even if I look at the menu at a restaurant and they say they have a mocktail that's made with spirits or something decent, that I want to order, they sometimes run out or don't have them. I'm just warning you. Because this just happened to me this past weekend. My go-to is always sparkling water with a splash of cranberry and lime, or an AF mojito. An AF mojito is brilliant because it's muddled lime, muddled mint, and then sometimes they have the mix that doesn't have alcohol in it, and then you just top it off with a little sparkling water. It's delicious. Yummy. Yeah, those are my two go-tos. We went to Key West. Dear God, total booze fest. I don't know why we went there. I'm never it's just a bunch of white middle-aged men walking around the streets completely bombed, and it's a horrifying sight to see. But
lovely.
The only thing I felt like I could get there was a mojito. Like all the bartenders would look at me like, you don't want alcohol? And then they're like, I can make you a mojito. And I'm like, okay. That's what I drank the whole time I was there. So there's so many more options now than
it's become a thing. Like if you go to the bars, they're like, a mocktail, and they're just as beautiful and delicious as a cocktail, but without the alcohol. And so it's a whole new craft beverage genre called the mocktail. And I love it.
And they kind of like it. I mean, the bartenders like to make something for you, so don't be intimidated. I've had so many bartenders. I had the best lemon drop no teeny, no martini, but no teeny, because everyone else at this bridal shower was having the espresso martini. The young gals, that's their big thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just said, well, can you make me something lemony or something and put it in a martini glass? Because, I wanted the fancy glass.
Yeah.
She made me the best with a sugared rim, this ginormous martini glass with this puckery lemon. Oh, it was delicious. And everyone at the table was looking, oh my gosh, what did you get? Ooh. And I said, well, it's a mocktail, but I didn't have to say that. I could just said,
Right.
oh, it's a lemon teeny, whatever. So when I went up to go to the ladies' room, and you had to go by the bar and to get there. And I said to the bartender, I said, thank you so much. That's the best drink I've ever had. And she said, I'm sober, babe. Like she whispered to me.
Why,
and I was, so many bartenders are sober.
Right, because they see the worst of the worst.
Yeah. Yes. So she was just like, I got you, babe. And I'm like, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. And then you have that little moment of like the Me Too moment. Like you can have that Me Too moment around sobriety.
In a positive way.
Yeah. And it's really, really exciting. It is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It was that was a sweet moment. And so you have these little sweet moments that just reinforce your choice.
Yeah.
To make a different choice that up-levels your life and makes you feel better. And it's worrisome. Can I just say it's worrisome how many women are drinking in midlife? It is the fastest growing trend in drinking.
Really?
Is
Tell
women
me more about
in
that.
midlife are drinking more. So yeah, there's, well, I don't know what it is about if I just think that we've normalized over drinking so much, but the CDC shows that alcohol-related deaths among women increased 35% between 2016 and 2020. That's even before COVID. Okay, and then you add COVID on top of that, and it's like, the gloves are off.
Yeah.
I think older women right now are 57.5% of adults 65 plus drink, which is more than the national average. So what I see in my clients, here's what the trends I see. So these aren't in studies or anything, but women in midlife, we have different, we have what we call in coaching an accelerator event. So empty nest, divorce, big one, death of a spouse, and all of a sudden you're using alcohol to cope. And when we use alcohol as a coping mechanism, it becomes addictive so much faster because your brain sees it as something necessary you need for survival. And that's why it holds on like this. And then you go to like cut back or something and you struggle with it and you're like, what is going on? I never had a problem with alcohol. I drank every now and then again, or I was a social drinker. And now it's like, I need it. I want my wine every night, because I need it. And when you tip over to that need, it becomes tricky. It's a sticky habit because you've used it as a coping mechanism. And I also see it as a trend in retirement and retirement communities. It's a way to fit in. It's a way to make new friends. So, it's pickleball and the cocktail of the week, you know what I mean? And everybody plays pickleball and then they go have a cocktail or what have you. Because I see this on I hear about it and I have clients telling me about how they're going to navigate these things when they're working on their drinking. And sometimes there's a combination of the two. You lose a spouse, then you go move to the retirement community. You're trying to fit in. And alcohol, if you go back, and this is what's underneath the iceberg again, you go back to high school. And did you drink to fit in? And so you have this neural pathway, yes, that, drinking helps me fit in. And now here you are 65 and you're in the retirement community. And it's almost like you're back in high school. You're trying to make friends. You don't know who your people are. And drinking is this thing that helps you fit in.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a bigger habit there. And then you notice, but the health risks in middle age are just so much more. And they're so much more for women. And so it's just really, and that's the information that I want to get out there. What you do with that information is up to you, but have the information. So many Americans just don't even know that alcohol, contributes to 7 different kinds of cancer, and for women, especially breast cancer. And then the overall, just how you feel, again, crapola, and falls. You hear about, you're leaving, the restaurant and you trip and fall in the parking lot and you break a hip. And we know that in older 70s, et cetera, the minute you have one of those major breaks in your older years, your quality of life declines. Then, okay, great. Now you're just sitting at home drinking because, you broke your leg or whatever. And so, I don't think people understand what binge drinking is, the definition of binge drinking.
I'm familiar with that one. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's 4 more drinks at an occasion.
4 more, did you say?
4 or more.
4 or more. Okay.
Yeah, drinks. And we're talking, so let's also talk about serving size. Probably in your wine glass, you have 2 servings. At least in the ones I would pour. Because if you poured me a 5-ounce serving, I'd be like, well, aren't you a little chintzy,
That's not a very good pour.
Coming. Yeah, exactly. So you probably have 2 servings in that one glass, and then you have 2 of those, or you have 3, and you still think, oh, I'm fine. I only had 3 glasses. That was probably
like
6 servings. So that's binge drinking.
Yeah.
And binge drinking also can lead to alcohol use disorder faster. So all of these things adding up are why, because women go, how did I get here? I said the same thing. I worried so much, like, Susan, how did you let this happen? What is wrong with you? Oh my gosh, how did I get here? Like, I was so upset with myself that when I finally just dropped that and went, okay, you're here. Like, seeing yourself on the map, you are here. Where do you want to go with this? And until I could do that, then I couldn't make any forward motion because I was just spinning my wheels about how am I here? How am I here? And it was like, no, you're here. Now, where do you want to go? And that really helped me get some traction on changing my drinking. So
that's amazing. I love all of the things you shared. And I was just like, like you're talking about,
I know,
like,
you're
when you're in high
nodding.
school and I'm all over here raising my hand for those of you who aren't watching it on
or
YouTube.
college or whatever your experience was.
No, I was in high school. And plus it was like, it was cool because my mom drank, right? So she'd be like, you kids can come over here and drink. It's a safe space and everything. I'm like, we're young, and like I said, I grew up with alcohol and I actually started drinking at a very young age. So it just became my norm.
Yeah. And you know
so
what?
The longer you drink, the harder it is to be, those kind of binging episodes, or like you said, it's just, So I also, there's something when you go to a bar, if you're in a gay bar, it's called the gay pour. So if you're having a gin and tonic, it's in a 16-ounce glass, and it's like gin and then a splash of tonic.
I didn't know that.
It's a gay pour, what you're talking about there. It's like, that's not enough. Put more in my glass. Okay, so be careful if you're drinking at a gay bar because they tend to be a little heavy on the alcohol side.
That is very interesting. I did not know that. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's in all of the sections, all of the areas of our life, the mommy wine book clubs, the this or that. Everybody's bringing their bottle. You go to a book club, everyone brings a bottle, and then you leave and all the bottles are gone. It's like, that means everyone drank a bottle somehow, But we've normalized that. We have normalized that. That's the problem. We've normalized over drinking. And so it is harder and harder for us to look at that and go, but this doesn't feel good, and maybe I want to change this, and that's what can make it a little tough. But I think it's changing, and I think it's changing with the younger generation, which is fabulous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with the great options too, with the great alcohol-free options, because I can get a bottle of alcohol-free sparkling wine and I can cheers with everyone. I've brought it to weddings. I'm going to have it on New Year's, Christmas Eve, what have you. I have something in my glass that's exactly the same as yours. It just doesn't have ethanol in it. And that's another thing that I learned.
And I'm going to feel really good on January 1st.
Yeah. But one fact I learned, and this is where I want you to if you're going to do a dry January, do one where you learn about alcohol and how
Yes.
alcohol affects your body. Like Andrew Huberman has a great podcast. There's so many books out there. Alcohol Explained by William Porter. Just learn about it while you're doing it. Don't just not drink and then go February 1st. Yippee, I can drink again.
Right.
That's what I did. But usually but when you learn about it, I learned that the chemistry numbers that they put together, the chemical symbol in your alcohol in your wine is this exact same as what's in the gasoline you put in your car.
Awesome.
It's essentially the same element when you get all the way
Yummy.
down. Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that gross? So you learn that and you're like, oh, yeah, it's shocking. But this is the stuff, really what is that big alcohol is perpetuating. Again, it's very similar to big tobacco.
I was just going to say that. Yes, absolutely. And when you talk about normalizing things, I mean, I grew up in the 60s and, the 60s and the 70s, and every TV show, the husband would come home from work and she's meeting him at the door with a martini or a cocktail or whatever. And it was cocktail culture,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's what it was. And, so it was the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think then the alcohol industry really started marketing to women in the 90s, because I had my kids 6 years apart, not by design, but you don't control these things. So when my daughter was little, we would get together in mommy groups and stuff, and alcohol was never a part of that. But when my son was little, when and this was a 6-year span when my daughter was born in 93, my son was born in 99. And when I went to like T-ball games and stuff for my son, so this was 2004, 2005, when he was like 5 or 6, all the moms in the aughts had their Yeti mugs full of wine. And that never happened with my daughter. So just in that 10-year span, this normalization of moms being out. I mean, let's face it, baseball is like watching paint dry when, it's T-ball. It's so freaking boring. And I get it, but
it is in professional baseball too. No offense to anybody out there.
True. Yeah. But this idea, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and we're all driving our kids home.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
And I didn't actually do that. My drinking only escalated. So here's an accelerating moment, right? My drinking, I didn't do that even then. I went, wow, people are drinking at baseball games? Like that wasn't part of my normal life. I didn't drink in my daily life. When I got a very stressful job at Yale University, and I was kind of in the drink coffee in the morning, drink wine at night. And when you drink, because I was very anxious and I would come home all twirled up and I would have a glass of wine and it calmed me down. Coping mechanism. And then because of tolerance, that one glass needed 2 glasses to get the same effect.
And then after 2, you're like, bye-bye.
Yeah, exactly.
All bets are off.
Exactly. And so that is exactly, so my story is exactly an accelerator event using alcohol as a coping mechanism. And then it became really a sticky habit that then just perpetuated itself in, And for you, I wanted to mention too, we love to say it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility. But for you, especially with an alcoholic mom and drinking at such a young age, so the younger you start drinking, the more likely you are to develop an alcohol use disorder in adult life.
Yeah.
So the best thing parents can do for your kids is to help them not be buying for them to have a party at your house and take all the keys and think you're the popular parent.
I'm the cool mom. Yeah. Right.
Because you want them to wait until they're adults to make that decision about drinking. And hopefully they'll be in like the new younger generation and decide not to drink very much, or if at all, because they really are focused on their health. So yeah.
And I have heard that, I mean, I've talked to some friends that were like, I grew up in an alcoholic household and it made me never want to touch it. So it can go either way.
Yes. Yeah.
This has been such an amazing conversation, Susan. I am so thrilled, and I definitely want to have you back on the show because I think it's something that we need. This is a conversation that we need to continue to have with midlife women. And, and if they are raising children and they're, like, how can you set that example and how can you affect what is going to happen in their lives? How can you model a different behavior? And how can you do all this stuff? So,
yeah, I'd love to.
I'd love to have you back on. And if I'd like to, as we wrap up here, what is something that you can, leave the listeners with a little word of wisdom, some kind of encouragement, maybe an actionable step that they can take. What would your parting words like to be?
Oh, I think that if you're feeling like like your drinking is not serving you, or that you worry about your drinking, you beat yourself up if you drink too much, you have Googled, am I an alcoholic? If you're up at night worrying like, how come why can't I stop after just one, those kind of questions, and you're beating yourself up,
Uh-huh.
I would just like you to put your hand on your heart and just say, it's not your fault. Alcohol is an addictive substance to humans. It doesn't mean anything about you. And just get curious. Just get curious.
Yeah.
And start to go, ask yourself, what are the jobs I've given alcohol? Ask yourself when you go to reach, I'm not even saying don't drink. When you go to reach for that drink mindfully. Ask yourself, what am I hoping this drink will do for me? What emotion do I want to suppress? Usually we're using alcohol to regulate our nervous system, either to upshift because I need more energy to get through this thing, or to downshift because I want to relax. And just ask yourself, why am I drinking? And, just to start there, just to start with curiosity. And if you can, take a break. Everyone should take a break and just
Uh-huh.
see what happens, and take it and be curious. Just be curious. Do you have cravings? And when you have a craving, why?
Yeah.
What do you want the drink to do for you?
Yeah.
That would be the
What role are
question.
you giving it? I love that.
Yes.
Just like
Yeah. What job? And then you can go
what's
around.
the job?
Then you can work with a coach. You can work, then we just start firing it. But when we fire alcohol from that job, we don't want to leave ourselves empty-handed. We want to have another resource. That's what I do when I work with clients, is we're not taking alcohol away. We're removing this, and we're meeting our need with something that actually meets that need.
Yeah. In a
Yeah.
healthy way.
In a healthy way. Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
beautiful.
I could just go on and on. I know
I
you're
know.
probably like, shut up, lady. We got to end this.
No, not at all. I could talk to you all day, but
Me
let me just
too.
say, so all of those things that you mentioned, I love
Yeah.
that. And when you said, when I was starting to think about it, I came across this resource, and I think it's the name of the website or whatever it's called, Stop Thinking About Drinking. Because if you're thinking about it, then you are starting to question it. You are starting to be
Yes.
curious. And it's like how to stop thinking about drinking. And so that was a resource that I found as well. How can people get in touch with you?
I would love it. You can find me on Susan Larkin Coaching, just my name with coaching.com. You can email me at Susan Larkin Coaching. You could find me on my podcast, Sober and Lit. And all the things that I've talked about here, we have an episode for everything, and other people's stories, and just listen to it. We talk to mostly gray area drinkers. Listen to a few podcast episodes and see if anything resonates with you. And yeah, just reach out. I'd love to have a chat with you. I have a free, we call it discovery call, where, just tell me a little bit about your story. It's just an honor. For sometimes I'm the first person that somebody's ever talked to about their drinking. And I'm
Yeah.
a safe place. I get it. I've been there. And and I can help direct you, whether it's working with me or just giving you some resources to get you started. Yeah, it's really a no risk situation. I'm pretty easy to talk to.
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I love it. I love all of this. And I think it's a great thing for people to hear as they're starting the new year. Like I said, setting those intentions for 2026, because I feel like 2026 is going to be a pivotal year for so many people. And why not have a clear mind as we're moving into
Yes.
2026? And that's my message. If this episode has resonated with you, or someone that you know could find value in this episode, please share it with a friend, rate, review. I love your comments, and also reach out to Susan and just, start getting curious. Thank you so much for being here today. I know you have an option of how you spend your time, but thank you for spending it with us here today. And this is a wrap for Midlife Strategies for Badass Women, and I will see you next week.
Hi, my name is Adam Shibley. I'm the host of Podcasting Business School, and I am the creator of the Podcast Growth Coach Certification Program. And today I'm here to brag on my newest certified podcast growth coach, Sue Willoughby. Sue has really excelled as she's gone through the certification process, which was not easy, by the way. She completed all the homework. She did all the testing. She even did a one-on-one final exam with me. And I was just continuously impressed from week to week, the improvement that she made. I'm really impressed at the creativity that she displayed, but also her ability to effectively communicate and coach people. So if you're somebody who feels like your podcast could use a little bit of a pick-me-up, you feel a little bit stuck with your download growth, or maybe in need of a rebrand, I highly, highly, highly recommend talking to Sue and talking about getting her help with your podcast growth.
Hey, badass listeners, have you ever thought about starting a podcast yourself, but are just too overwhelmed, or you don't know where to start? You don't know what to talk about, or you think you have a lot to talk about, but you don't know how the heck to get started. So if you are pod curious, you can get ready to launch your podcast in 2026. What the hell are you waiting for? There's a link in the show notes. Just click on I'm Pod Curious, and you can get registered for those events. See you soon.